Are you trying to decide what kind of bike to complement your van life? Well, today I'm going to share our experience with bicycles and bicycle racks and give you some things to consider. When we're out on the road, we see lots of Class A's and Class C's that are towing a tow vehicle. And then you see a lot of camper vans towing bicycles, and some now have switched to motorcycles like Adventure Van Man, Brian. And so why have they chosen what they have? What style bicycle should you perhaps consider? Whether just a regular bike, a beach cruiser, a fat tire bike, an electric bike. And I'm going to kind of go through some of those things. John and I don't claim to be experts on bicycles, but we've had quite a few through the years. We've done quite a few long distance rides. We've done the Seattle to Portland ride on a tandem. We've also done two backroads bicycle tours, one on a tandem, one with mountain bikes. I did a 3-week outward bound alumni course in northern Scotland. And then John and I have done a Scotland bicycle trip together ourselves. John has done the Grand Canyon to Mexico ride, and also the Death Valley to Lone Pine, which ultimately gets up to the Mount Whitney portal, but he didn't quite get that far on a tandem with a young guy with really strong legs. That's how hard that ride is. So my point is, we've had all kinds of bikes, and everyone has its advantage. When it comes to bike racks, we've had roof-mounted racks, hitch-mounted racks, trunk-mounted racks. We've had Thule, we've had Yakima, we've had Let's Go Aero, and now we have the Hollywood rack for our fat-tired e-bikes. I think the hardest thing about bike racks is actually getting them set up so that they will hold your bicycle. That takes the longest, getting everything adjusted to hold the bikes that you have, and that certainly has been true for us for every bike rack we've ever had. But now that we've used the Hollywood rack with our e-bikes for a month or two now, it has worked out really well, and I would highly recommend that rack. There's no I'm not getting any kickbacks here to push either the Hollywood rack or the fat tired Rad bikes that we have, but they have worked out really well. I think first you need to consider your expectations. So what do you think the bicycle is going to do for you? Do you think you're going to go out and camp and there are going to be bike trails to ride on that are paved, or are you a mountain biker and you like to do dirt riding? Do you think that the bike is going to get you to sites that you may not have seen otherwise? Now, those are kinds of the things we had considered when we took on our original long-distance bike trip last year to Glacier National Park. We took our bikes, and what we found was that we never used them. We used them, I think, once or twice at the most. I think we expected that we would be able to ride them more around campgrounds and areas where, whether you're boondocking or whatever, we thought we would get more use out of them, but we just didn't. And so more recently, we had been discussing whether to get electric bikes so that we could actually get farther on a bicycle, because so often that campgrounds are a long way away, and a long way away from services or stores, and you might be wanting to take a bike into town to get groceries or other supplies. And with just a regular bike, I mean, of course you can do it, but sometimes it's just so inconvenient you don't. And when you're in a camper van, you don't always want to take your van everywhere you go. It would be nice to be able to leave the van in one spot and then just hop on your bikes and take off. And I think that a lot of the full-timers have recognized that, and that's why they have a motorcycle, or that's why the Class A's and Class C's have the tow vehicle that they carry where they go. And so one of our first trips with the e-bikes, we discovered that the e-bike could get us, especially the fat-tired e-bike, could get us so much farther on a dirt road back into more wild areas, so that it allowed us to explore things that we wouldn't necessarily explore. So for the purposes of this video, I think I'll compare a mountain bike, just a standard mountain bike with, decent sized tires, to an electric bike with fat tires, and talk about the pros and cons. So the first pro about having a mountain bike is that it is lightweight and fairly easy to load on a bike rack. You can do it, one person can do it. Whereas our new fat tired bikes from Rad, the Rad Mini, and ours are the Rad Mini, they fold up. Anyway, those are really heavy. John can lift it by himself. It probably weighs around 60, maybe 63, 64 pounds. And we can take the battery out, and that maybe makes it 60 pounds, but it's still a very heavy bicycle and kind of awkward to load onto a bike rack by yourself. And so that's one of the downsides. If you're traveling alone, it may be too much. The other plus side to a mountain bike is you can use it on bicycle trails. Technically, an electric bike can only be used on roads where cars can travel, so four-wheel drive cars or two-wheel drive, and so you're kind of limited there in some areas. Now, what we find is most places they're not real picky about it, but when you're in areas where there are probably a lot of traffic, you're going to run into more problems with an electric bike getting by instead of on a trail that's really not meant for an electric bicycle.
Here's a bike trail that runs along the highway that goes to Emerald Bay, and it goes all the way to the casinos, actually.
Generally, with a mountain bike, a decent mountain bike is less expensive than a decent electric bike. The Rad Mini it costs around $1,500, and you can certainly get a very nice mountain bike for less than $1,000. And of course, you can pay a lot more. You can pay many thousands for a really high quality bicycle. But in general, the mountain bike is going to be less expensive. These are our two Rad Mini bikes. They have two models, one for people up to 6'2". Although John is 6'5", it still fits him. And it comes with, it used to come with a rack in the back. It no longer comes with a rack. John ordered the fenders, but he's going to take it off because he doesn't really need it. And then back here is the one for smaller people. This is actually the step-through model that they just started selling this past year, 2019 model. And it is for people up to 5'10". And I highly recommend a step-through. If anybody has any issues lifting their leg, the step-through is really a terrific option. They do both fold, although I don't see any need for us to fold them. So the nice feature is this throttle, which actually removes it from being a Class 1 electric bike. Class 1 is just for bikes that just give you an assist. But this throttle actually functions like a motorcycle throttle. And the nice thing about that is if you're on a hill, and let's say you're waiting at a light and you're on a hill, it's just so much, I think, safer to be able to propel yourself into the intersection without having to pedal first. You can get a better workout with a mountain bike, but you can get a workout with an electric bike. You determine kind of the level of assist that you want. So you can set it on the lowest level and get a little bit of help and still get exercise. So that's entirely up to you. But a lot of people, as they get older and they may not have the abilities to get as far as they may want on a regular bike, and so an electric bike is really a great option for them. So as far as exercise goes, there are 5 ranges of assist. It starts at 1 and goes up to 5, and that's controlled over here on the handlebar. You just so here's the screen that it comes with, and you can see it's got full battery power. You just push this button to increase the mode to, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 is the most assist, and I forgot the top speed. I think it's 20 or 25 miles an hour, something like that. And so if you want to put it in one, you'll get just a small amount of assist and get more exercise. And if you want to just be really lazy, you can put it in 5. But I usually keep it around 3, and that seems to be perfect speed for what I want to go. Over here are here's the gear shifter for changing the gears. And this is actually the button that engages the throttle. So if you don't want to use the throttle at all, you can just push the button and disengage it. And the bike does come with lights, but that's about all it comes with right now. John's tires are slightly larger. I mean, not slightly larger. The frame is larger, but the tire, he got nubby tires, and I don't know really why his tires are nubby and mine are smooth. But either way, they've been working great in the dirt and in really loose sand. Another consideration is that it's really not a big deal if a regular bicycle gets wet. But with an electric bike, you really don't want to be getting all those components wet and maybe covered in mud and things like that. So if you're going into probably, heavy rainy areas, then you have to consider how you're going to cover them and keep them protected from the rain. Need to clean off our bikes, they're getting wet. With our e-bikes, we find that we use them much more frequently to pick up supplies and things from a community that might be farther away. When we were out in Anza Borrego, we ended up going into town with our bikes, and it was nice to be able to leave the van at the campground, plugged in, and not have to, feel like something, we needed to put things away. And so we used it to pick up ice and drinks and other supplies that we needed. I made another rookie mistake earlier today. We went on a great bike ride and hike, and I had the camera on the wrong setting, so I had to delete all that footage. It was on time lapse. So now we're going to go off and get an ice cream down in town with the e-bikes. In Lake Havasu, we did the same thing. We used the bicycle to pick up supplies, but we also used it to explore Lake Havasu, where the traffic can be a little bit bad, and but there are quite a few bicycle trails and some off-roading areas where you can take a bike, and nobody really cared whether it was an e-bike or not. In fact, I don't think we saw any electric bikes out there. So we didn't worry about being scofflaws. And then coming back from our trip to Arizona a month or so ago, the e-bikes came in so handy exploring some of the back areas of the BLM campground where we stayed, and finding things that we would not have found otherwise. We would not have necessarily driven the van up some of these dirt roads. So that was really fun. Wow. This is nice. This is nice. Look at that fireplace. Wow. How terrific is this? This is our last day on our trip, and the most interesting campground we've ever discovered, called Cold Springs Campground. Corn Springs Campground. Thanks, John. There's only one other person camped there, and it's 10 miles in. We wouldn't have done it except that we had the new suspension package and the great tires, and we rode over those bumps beautifully at 25 miles an hour. So now we're going to keep going up this dirt road and see what else we can discover.
In the previous rendition of the suspension, how fast do you think we would have gone?
Maybe, I think before we had the suspension package, we probably would have gone 10 miles an hour. Yeah. And I would have been just, it would have been rocking and rolling all over the place. So that was a great upgrade to the van. On our trip out to Lake Havasu, we stopped at the Pisgah Crater lava tubes, and explored that area. We have stopped off of Interstate 40 to go visit the Pisgah lava tubes. The road was pretty rough, so we decided to get our electric bikes down and take them the rest of the way. Bikes are parked up there. You do want to have gloves. These rocks are sharp. Right there. You can go all the way through that one. This one's really deep.
She's a mole person.
Yeah. I'm a Morlock. No. Yeah.
Morlock.
From the time machine. When we were camped at Lake Havasu, we ran into a couple who said that they had been to Alaska last year and they had taken their bicycles. And I commented that we were actually not going to take our bikes up there this year because of the, a lot of rain, a lot of bugs, but probably more importantly because we didn't think we'd actually ride them. As we noted from several of the YouTube channels like Less Junk More Journey, they had their bicycles, but they said they didn't use them on that trip, or maybe used them once. And so I remarked that to this person, and she thought that it was a big mistake. And then in the final analysis, I said, well, how often did you use them on your trip? And she said, well, maybe once or twice. So I think that we often think we're going to use our bicycles more than we do. And so on this trip, because we really feel it, we need the spare tire, foremost. The bicycles are not going to come, although I'm sure we would find places on the way up and back where we might use them. You have to make decisions. You can't carry it all. We can't have everything. And so that is the balancing act that we have done. And so whatever bicycle you choose, it's not going to be perfect for every situation or every place that you go. There are two kinds of bikes that I want to just briefly talk about depending on what your situation is. Our friends who met us in our friends who are from New Zealand and met us in Hawaii, they carry with them whenever they travel, they carry their collapsible bicycles. And they're really nice small bikes that you can fold up into a suitcase. And they're just really fun to have along. We were able to ride them and kind of discover secret hidden beaches that they try to keep hidden from you when you're in Hawaii. And it's just a great form of exercise. And we really had a blast on the bicycles while we were there. And I mention them because if you have a rig that actually has storage, then you might be able to fit a collapsible bicycle inside of the storage bins. And that could be an option. Okay, so Dean, tell us how much it saves you by packing them into a suitcase as opposed to like a bike carrier.
So to fly from LA to New York, it's $145 American each way. And to fly from Waikiki to Kauai, it's $35 each way. So by doing this, saved me a lot of dollars.
Right.
We did get caught in United one, even though we're flying first class. We only had one baggage and a bike box, but still charged us $145.
Wow.
And the ironic, golf clubs are free. Surfboards cost $200 each way American.
They like golfers better than cyclists.
So directors must be golfers.
Yes. And you've taken these to New York City where you rode around.
Huntington Beach.
Yes.
Queensland, Australia, Fiji, been around Fiji. And just like Fiji, we used to spend so much time around the pool. The week we were there last year, we only spent one day around the pool.
Oh.
The rest was cycling,
Huh.
getting to know the place. And like, we wouldn't have found those albatrosses if we hadn't been out.
That's right. Today.
cycling.
I mean, yeah, yesterday.
And nesting
Yeah.
albatross in the middle of
Right.
just a house under their
Right.
hedge.
Right.
The other type of bicycle I want to mention is actually a tricycle. My oldest brother is 10 years older than I am, and he and his wife may be not as comfortable on a two-wheel bicycle as they used to be. And so when they're snowbirding in Arizona, they have an electric tricycle that they can ride around the campground. So that is clearly not something we can carry on a van, but it's something I'm just throwing that out for those who may be thinking, well, how would that work? And I'll show you some video of our when we met up with him in Arizona and how he carries it on the back of his fifth wheel.
Cranking it up.
I need to get a battery-powered drill so I can just spin it up. That's good. You're doing great. Doing great. It won't take long and it'll be off the ground.
John, you would have never gotten a shower this morning.
No, you would have been circling campground.
So those are my thoughts about bicycles and bicycle racks, and I would love to hear what others have to say about this and what you've chosen and how it's worked out for you. I'm sure the other subscribers would love to see that. I think it was actually Gina Brown who asked for a longer video on this subject, and thank you, Gina, for doing that, because it really got me thinking about bicycles and all the bicycles we've had throughout our lives. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.
And then my bike went into the ocean, then crashed into a boat.
Keep going, Finn.